Hello Horror Hounds. As we work our way chronologically through the films of Dario Argento and wave goodbye to Profundo Rosso, even though I've talked about the next two films in quite some detail a while ago, it just seems wrong to hop frog over them and move on to the next one. So whilst I will link to my more rambling and fuller discussions of each individual movie below, it seems wrong to not take some time out to nod to Suspiria and Inferno. Let's kick off by nailing the fact that Dario Nicolodi, Argento's partner, work partner, muse, leading actress, gets a co-writing credit on Suspiria but not Inferno. However, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the lack of one here is just her unwillingness to go to battle, to fight for that. Supernatural elements, the ballet school from Suspiria, which comes from a family story of hers, the literary antecedent to the Three Mothers in Thomas de Quincey's work, art, poetry, all of the radical new direction that Argento goes in is down to the influence of Dario Nicolodi and the strength at the time of their relationship giving him the courage to try something radically different. So while she's credited here and goes uncredited here, make no mistake, Dario Argento probably wouldn't have made these kind of completely supernatural movies without her help, influence, guidance, encouragement, support. And it's very important, I think, to acknowledge her influence and the debt that people who love these Argento movies do owe to her. He can't take all the credit all the time. Much as I love him and much as I suspect he feels that he probably can, Dario, no. So I've talked previously about Suspiria, and if you want to, I'll link to that older video. But it's worth saying, what an opening. Goblins rolling drums and screeching strings leading into their sensational theme tune. I mean, the work they did on Profundo Rosso is superb. The work they do here is just another level altogether. They're introduced instantly to the American innocent in Germany and her journey from the airport to the dance academy, through the rain, through the forests, instantly making me think of the Black Forest in Germany, Grimm's fairy tales, Jonathan Harker's journey through Europe towards Castle Dracula in Bram Stoker's novel. There's a recurring theme of water in Suspiria that I don't fully understand. Rainstorms, overflowing storm drains, street drains, plugs, water spouts, swimming pools, that obviously means something very important to Dario. And if you keep an eye out for water, it's a recurring theme in a ton of his movies. The design of the hotel at the start of the movie and the dance academy add, for me, to the feeling of a children's fairy tale. And it has the aesthetic of a children's pop-up book. The abstraction that was implemented in Profundo Rosso is pushed even further in the lighting and set design in this movie. Freed from the shackles of the real world that we understand, the threat here, the fear and black magic surrounding the heroine can become more expressionistic. The bottom line is, it doesn't all have to make sense, because it's magic. Famously, the door handles at the academy are shoulder height to make the students seem more like small children. It adds, for me, to the Alice in Wonderland feel of huge sections of the movie. It feels very Alice to me, that, with the doors of strange sizes. Later there's some more Alice, if you will, in the exposition scene where the professor talks about witchcraft to Susie Bannion. And the scene starts with them face to face either side of the frame talking, and the camera pushes in between them. There's a big plate glass window behind them. The camera pushes in on them, between them, and then on into the conversation continues in reflection. We're watching the reflection of the conversation. It literally goes through the looking glass, if you will, and from that point on, Susie finds herself in her own nightmarish wonderland. What once made sense is now a whirl of threat and dark fantasy horror. Even the cook, she in that corridor scene, who's polishing something metal and flashes it in Susie's eyes and essentially puts a hex on her. That cook reminds me of Tennille's original illustrations of the Red Queen, and later on in the film where we find that she's got an uncanny double in the kitchen. The two of them together instantly remind me of Tweedledum and Tweedledee as they chortle together chopping meat. Clearly Suspiria stands alone, and if it was a success, then the opportunity was there to expand the myth underlying that story, the idea of the three mothers, these three witches. So you don't have to have seen Suspiria before watching Inferno. If you by any chance haven't seen Suspiria or Inferno, I'd actually recommend that you watch Inferno first. It introduces the overarching myth of the three mothers. There are no characters or plot from the first film that carry over into this, and it also means, to be fair, Inferno will get a better chance with you as a fresh viewer rather than being unfavourably compared off the back of having just watched Suspiria. What movie can really stand up to that challenge? Argento takes what he began in Suspiria to almost incomprehensible extremes with Inferno. The look of the film, the structure is even more abstract, even more disjointed. Anyone looking for sense will not find it here. Whilst it does seem to be expanding greatly upon the myth, the story being told in the two films, Suspiria and Inferno, Inferno is a film that guards its secrets jealously. David Lynch does similar things. When you get the feel that a writer-director understands all the meaning and symbolism but has no interest in doing anything as prosaic as actually explaining them to the viewer. So we're left with a succession of signifiers without truly understanding what it is that they signify. This adds to what many favourable reviewers see as a dreamlike or nightmarish quality to Inferno, and less favourable viewers mark that out as a reason why it's a jumbled, nonsensical mess. Water again is a recurring theme in Inferno, just as it was in Suspiria. We're given no more information as to why it should be so important, but the film begins with the drowned basement of the housing tenement that Mater Tenebrarum has ensconced herself in. There's the Central Park pond and sewer outlet where Kazanian tries to drown a sack of cats and ends up being dispatched by Rats himself with the help of, well, yes, a hot dog vendor and a really weird insert. Mark, one of the few, he's not really the hero of the film, one of the film's protagonists, after being knocked unconscious, has a dream of the ocean, which is never explained. We seem to be given clues in the very architecture of Mater Tenebrarum's building without them ever being explained to us. There are cast iron dragons outside holding up the railings that surround the building, and that's an easy one enough, I suppose. Dragons, the devil, black magic, witchcraft. But there's a recurring stucco pattern all around the building of that actually becomes quite important to the turn at the end, to the reveal, of two lizards locked in each other's jaws in mortal combat, with a snake coiled around both of them, hovering over them, preparing to strike both of them. What does it mean? Does that tell us something about Mater Tenebrarum and how she positions herself against her two older sisters, joined to them but above them, ultimately triumphant over the two of them? The lizard appears again in a brief montage of images completely unrelated to the rest of the film. We see a black-gloved hand taking a pair of scissors to a daisy chain of people, snipping off their heads, and as each head goes, we cut to a picture of a lizard, eating a butterfly, then a woman hanging that we've never seen in the movie before, never see again, and then another head goes off and the lights go out in the building of one of the characters that we're currently following. What does any of it mean? Are we to conclude that the hands represent the reach of Mater Tenebrarum and how at a distance she can almost omen-like manipulate and kill any threat to her? In Phenomena, a couple of films later, the butterfly is expressed as a representation of the human soul. Is this another, as with water, recurring motif of Argento's, an image that he understands the personal symbology of? Lizards crop up often in his films. So a lizard eating a butterfly, is that saying something about the forces of evil chowing down on the human psyche, the human soul, good versus evil? Who knows? The story of Inferno is equally fractured. It's almost episodic, leaving the viewer uncertain as to who we're following and ultimately who we're rooting for. We begin in New York with Rose Elliott, who herself is adorned with the symbology of magic. She has a big eye pendant, and the key fob that she goes swimming after is a coiled, banded serpent. Then we move from her on to Rome, where we meet her brother Mark, but kind of leave him, even though Rose has contacted him, because we follow the much more interesting and inquisitive Sarah, one of Mark's friends, as she investigates the thread of rumours about the three mothers. Sarah's investigation, curiosity does kill the cat, and after Sarah dies, Mark travels to New York to try and catch up with his sister Rose, who he's lost contact with. She's disappeared, and there he meets Rose's friend Elise, played by Daria Nicolodi, who is another intelligent, inquisitive woman who also pays with her life for snooping into the affairs of Mater Tenebrarum. In the end, it is the utterly clueless and ineffectual Mark who emerges almost as the de facto hero of sorts, simply through stint of being the last man standing. And he has done absolutely nothing. He doesn't even start the inferno of the title that brings down Mater Tenebrarum's stronghold crashing down around her. No one character has a handle on the whole picture. No one person knows the entirety of what's going on, apart from Tenebrarum herself. It's as if the leads from this movie have come from Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, have stumbled into one of Roger Corman's Edgar Allan Poe movies, whilst that movie is having a nightmare of itself. It's so bonkers. I can understand, honestly, why people were frustrated by this movie, coming, especially as it did, after Suspiria. But there's something about the wild abandon, the excess of Inferno, that just, I find it endearing. On its own terms, Inferno represents a twisted hall of mirrors reflection of its sister film, Suspiria. Without a heart-pumping goblin score, the relatively plot-senseless Inferno, even after multiple viewings, feels like a subpar version of Suspiria. But it's one that I have a lot of fun with, despite the frustration it engenders. I'd rather have Argento experimenting, pushing the form, rather than being hampered by ever-shrinking budgets and horse trading on past glories, as he will eventually begin to do as we continue to look at the films of the Italian maestro Dario Argento. So please, if you're enjoying these, thank you. Next time, Tenebrae.